Canada is the second largest country in the world, and its road network has to cover terrain ranging from Pacific coastal mountain passes to subarctic tundra to boreal wilderness, stretching for hundreds of unbroken kilometers. Speed limits frequently run at 110 kilometers per hour. The distances between towns can exceed 300 kilometers with no fuel, no cell coverage, no services of any kind. Moose collisions are frequently fatal because a mature bull moose can weigh over 700 kilograms, and the impact at highway speed strikes at windshield level rather than bumper level. The roads on this list are not dangerous for a single reason. They are dangerous because of what happens when extreme weather, enormous distances, sparse services, and near-zero cell coverage converge on the same stretch of pavement or gravel. It's a stretch of the Coquihalla Highway in British Columbia, sometime in February. Freezing rain hits the windshield faster than the wipers can clear it. Visibility collapses to maybe 10 meters. The grade is steep enough that a loaded tractor trailer behind you is already in a slow, helpless slide it cannot stop. You can hear it before you can see it. There is no shoulder wide enough to escape onto. Cell signal here is intermittent at best. The next exit is 12 kilometers ahead. What you just imagined is a routine winter weather event on one of the more accessible roads on this list. The other roads are worse. Some of them are worse because of avalanches. Some of them are worse because the nearest fuel station is 369 kilometers away. And one of them is on this list for a reason that has nothing to do with the road itself. That one comes first. Highway 16, the Yellowhead Highway in northern British Columbia, runs 725 kilometers between Prince George and Prince Rupert. The corridor carries another name. It is called the Highway of Tears. Since 1970, at least 18 women and girls have been confirmed by the RCMP's Project E-Pana investigation as murdered or missing along this stretch. Indigenous community organizations and family advocates have documented many more cases that fall outside the RCMP's specific case parameters, with some estimates placing the true figure well over 40. The majority of victims have been Indigenous women and girls. The 2015 National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls documented Highway 16 as a site of systemic and ongoing violence, tied directly to the chronic lack of transportation infrastructure in the region. Communities along the corridor have not had reliable inter-community bus service connecting them. That meant residents, particularly young women, historically relied on hitchhiking to travel between towns. That was not a careless choice. It was a consequence of public infrastructure being absent from a region that had been underserved for decades. Advocacy groups, including Carrier Sakani Family Services, pressed for coordinated action long before national attention arrived. Cell coverage along significant portions of the highway is still limited. Communities like Smithers, Vanderhoof, and Burns Lake are separated by long stretches of forest highway with no services and no witnesses. The danger on the Highway of Tears is not the road surface, it is not the grade, and it is not the weather. It is what has been permitted to happen to people along it for more than 50 years, largely without adequate response or infrastructure investment. This road belongs on this list, but for reasons entirely different from every other road on it. The next one earns its place the conventional way. The Coquihalla Highway, Highway 5 in British Columbia, connects Hope to Kamloops across 200 kilometers of mountain terrain. It opened in 1986 and immediately built a reputation for unforgiving conditions. The highway climbs through the Coquihalla Pass at an elevation of 1,244 meters. Sustained grades on the descent are steep enough to challenge loaded commercial vehicles in both directions. Truck runaway lanes are positioned at critical points on the way down. They are used often enough that their presence is not a formality. In winter, the pass receives heavy snowfall and freezing rain on a regular basis. The combination of high elevation, steep grades, and dense commercial traffic has produced dozens of fatalities over the decades. The BC Ministry of Transportation designates the highway as a mandatory winter tire and chain-up zone from October through April. Sections through the pass can close on short notice. Checking Drive BC before departure is standard practice for anyone with experience on this road. In November 2021, An atmospheric river event produced catastrophic flooding and landslides that severed the highway entirely, cutting off the primary inland route connecting the lower mainland to the interior of British Columbia for weeks. The highway has since reopened. The event demonstrated how completely this corridor can fail under the right atmospheric conditions. Further west, a different stretch of British Columbia Mountain Highway has its own record. The Sea-to-Sky Highway, Highway 99 in British Columbia, runs 120 kilometers from Vancouver north to Whistler through some of the most dramatic coastal mountain scenery in the country. For much of its length, a rock face rises on one side while a sheer drop falls away on the other. Before 2010, the highway had a well-documented fatality record that prompted a major realignment and widening project funded in part by preparations for the Vancouver Winter Olympics. The improvements reduced the accident rate measurably. Four-laning of critical sections removed many of the most hazardous passing situations. The road remains demanding. Rock falls onto the highway surface are a documented and recurring hazard. Avalanche zones cross the route through the higher elevations above Squamish. In wet conditions, which describes most of the year in coastal British Columbia, sections through the canyons turn slick with little warning. Drivers unfamiliar with mountain driving sometimes underestimate how little margin the shoulder offers on curves above Howe Sound. The highway has improved considerably since the pre-Olympics era, but it still asks for the kind of attention a divided freeway does not. The Sea-to-Sky has avalanche zones. The next road on this list crosses one of the worst avalanche corridors on the continent. The Trans-Canada Highway through Rogers Pass in Glacier National Park, British Columbia, crosses one of the most active avalanche corridors in North America. The pass sits at 1,330 meters elevation. The surrounding mountain slopes in the Selkirk Range receive annual snowfall measured in meters. Parks Canada operates one of the longest-running avalanche control programs in the world here, using artillery to trigger controlled releases before they become uncontrolled ones. The program has been running continuously since the 1960s. The highway can still close with little notice when avalanche risk reaches critical levels. Closures historically run from several hours to multiple days. The Trans-Canada through this section connects Revelstoke to Golden across roughly 80 kilometers of mountain highway that demands winter tires, reduced speeds in deteriorating conditions, and a willingness to wait at the closure gate when the signs are up. Documented incident patterns on this stretch include multi-vehicle collisions during sudden whiteout conditions and crashes related to black ice forming faster on the elevated roadway than on the lower elevation approaches. Services between Revelstoke and Golden are limited. A serious incident in winter stretches emergency response across a significant distance. Leaving the mountains for the Arctic, the danger profile changes completely. The Dempster Highway in the Yukon and Northwest Territories runs 736 kilometers from Dawson City to Inuvik. It is the only public road in Canada to cross the Arctic Circle. It does so entirely on gravel. There is no paved surface on the Dempster for its full length. The road crosses two major rivers, the Peel and the Mackenzie, by ferry in summer and by ice road in winter. There are transition periods in spring and fall when neither crossing is available and the road closes entirely. Services along the full corridor consist of two small communities, Eagle Plains at roughly the halfway point and Fort McPherson near the northern end. Between Dawson City and Eagle Plains, the distance is 369 kilometers with nothing in between. Cell coverage is essentially non-existent for the entire route. A flat tire on the Dempster is not a minor inconvenience. Experienced drivers carry two full-size spare tires as a minimum. The gravel surface throws sharp rock fragments that puncture tires, crack windshields, and damage lights on a regular basis. In winter, temperatures on the Dempster drop below -40 degrees Celsius. Wind across the open tundra sections reduces visibility to near zero for extended periods. Caribou migrate across the highway in herds numbering in the tens of thousands. A collision with a caribou at speed is a serious accident. The Dempster is a remarkable road through some of the most extraordinary wilderness on the continent. It is also a road where a mechanical failure without preparation can escalate into a life-threatening situation within hours. Every traveler is strongly advised to register with local RCMP before departure and carry emergency supplies rated for conditions well beyond what the forecast shows. The Dempster is the most remote road in the west. The most remote road in the east covers more than twice the distance. The Trans-Labrador Highway in Newfoundland and Labrador covers approximately 1,149 kilometers across the province, connecting Labrador City in the west to the ferry terminal at Blanc-Sablon on the Quebec border in the east. Significant sections of the highway are unpaved, with gravel stretches that vary in condition depending on season and recent weather. The road traverses some of the most isolated terrain in eastern Canada. Communities along the route are separated by distances that turn a breakdown without cell coverage into a real emergency rather than an inconvenience. Transport Canada data on moose vehicle collisions in Newfoundland and Labrador consistently shows some of the highest rates in the country. Those collisions are frequently fatal given the physics of the impact. The Trans-Labrador does not carry the grade or the avalanche exposure of the mountain highways on this list, but its combination of isolation, gravel surface, limited services, and wildlife density gives it a fatality record that earns its place here. Fuel planning is not optional. Stations are separated by distances that can exceed 250 kilometers on certain sections. Rescue services operate under constraints that simply do not exist on more accessible routes. Remoteness is one kind of killer. Traffic volume is another. Highway 63 in Alberta runs 290 kilometers north from Edmonton to Fort McMurray. At the peak of Alberta's oil sands expansion in the late 2000s, it carried an estimated 20,000 vehicles per day on a road that was two-lane undivided for most of its length. That combination, heavy commercial traffic on undivided highway, produced a head-on collision rate that drew national attention through the 2000s and into the 2010s. A 2012 crash killed 7 people when a pickup truck crossed the center line. Public pressure following that crash and others contributed to Alberta Transportation investing in twinning sections of the corridor. The divided sections have reduced the head-on fatality rate on those stretches. Significant two-lane sections still remain, however, and the volume of traffic continues to produce serious crashes. Fatigue is a well-documented contributing factor. Workers driving to and from Fort McMurray regularly travel long hours at shift change. The flat terrain and long straightaways create conditions that contribute to drowsy driving. The highway also descends and climbs through the Athabasca River Valley in a section that asks for attention in winter conditions. Highway 63's danger is not remoteness. It is the pressure of industrial traffic volume on a corridor that for years was not built to handle what was being asked of it. Heading east, the volume drops to almost nothing. So does everything else. The James Bay Road in northern Quebec runs 620 kilometers north from Matagami to Radisson. It does so without a single fuel stop, service station, community, or reliable cell signal for its entire length. It is widely cited as the longest road in North America without a service point. Drivers attempting the James Bay Road must carry enough fuel for the full round trip if returning south, as availability at Radisson cannot be guaranteed for passing through travelers. The road crosses dozens of rivers and streams through boreal forest and muskeg terrain that offers no landmarks and very little variation for hundreds of kilometers at a stretch. Moose are present throughout the corridor. In winter, the road surface becomes compacted snow and ice for extended periods. Blowing snow across open sections near James Bay produces whiteout conditions with minimal warning. Emergency response is not measured in minutes. It is measured in the hours it takes help to reach a remote location, sometimes longer if conditions are deteriorating. The road exists primarily to serve hydroelectric facilities and related industrial infrastructure, which means traffic is sparse and rescue services are not oriented around casual travelers. The James Bay Road is the longest service gap in North America. The last road on this list runs through similar country with a worse safety record. Route 389, also in Quebec, runs 570 kilometers north from Baie-Comeau to Fermont, passing through the Laurentian Plateau and into the subarctic interior of the province. The road carries relatively low traffic volume but has a documented fatality rate that consistently ranks among the highest in Quebec on a per-kilometre basis. Approximately 200 kilometres of the route are still unpaved. The gravel sections through the Monts Otish area and near the Manic 5 Dam are rough and demanding for vehicles not prepared for the surface. Fuel is available at Manic 5, 214 kilometres north of Baie-Comeau, and again at Fermont near the end of the route. Nowhere in between. The wildlife density on Route 389 includes moose, black bear, and woodland caribou. The nearest hospital to the central section of the route is hours away by road under good conditions. Route 389 rewards drivers who respect what it is, a remote northern industrial access road. It punishes drivers who approach it like a provincial highway with amenities. That's the full list. 9 roads, 1 country, 1 shared problem. Distance removes the safety net. Weather removes visibility and traction. Wildlife removes the assumption that the road ahead is clear. Isolation removes the ability to call for help. On most highways, you might encounter one of those on a bad day. On the roads covered here, 2 or 3 of them stack up at once, and sometimes all 4. If you're planning to drive any of these, the basics matter. Carry more fuel than the math requires. Use winter tires from October through April on any mountain route. Carry a physical map, because phone navigation will fail you somewhere on the Dempster or the Trans-Labrador. Pack emergency supplies rated for the coldest temperature you might realistically hit, not the one in the forecast. And tell someone your route before you leave. Thank you for joining me on this look at the deadliest roads in Canada. Whether you've driven any of these, are planning a trip across the country, or just want to understand the geography most people only see from the air, I hope this gave you a clearer picture. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe so you never miss out on future explorations of the places, the landscapes, and the stories that make Canada what it is. And before you go, tell me in the comments, which of these roads have you driven, and which one would you absolutely refuse to attempt? I read every comment. Until next time, take care and keep exploring.